morning, everyone. Again, good to see all of you. And thank you for coming. Again, we start as usual. Try to relax both your body and mind. And make yourself comfortable. And feel the cushion or the chair and surrounding. And then as you inhale, exhale naturally, watch and observe it mindfully and be aware of that. And somehow, if your mind wander off, you can always bring back to the breath. Then we can try to have a good intentions. We can think, is the importance of keeping our mind peace and happy. If our mind is happy and peaceful, things do not agitate and upset us easily, disturb us easily. On the other hand, when our mind is not happy and peaceful, very small things can trigger, disturb, agitate. And make us unhappy and miserable. And when our mind is unhappy and miserable, then we can become very impatient, easily frustrated, easily become negative easily. And we tend to engage in the actions that bring more harm and hurt to others. In that way, not only we are unhappy and miserable, we make others' life unhappy and miserable. Therefore, it's important to keep our mind calm, peaceful, happy all the time. For our own well-being and well-being of others. And to be able to keep our mind calm, peaceful, and happy, we have to practice and train our mind. By transforming any situations, any circumstances, any experiences into something positive, into the path. And to be able to do that, it requires practice and the time. Also, to remind ourselves of the part of the practices. We continue to listen, read, discuss, reflect, contemplate. With that hope and reason, that's why we are here. And whatever we study, whatever we learn from the Dharma, not only just understand it intellectually, but may we be able to integrate, apply in our everyday life. As much as we can. May I ask you coming together to listen, to discuss, to reflect, contemplate. May all this become cause and conditions to obtain our highest potential, the fully awakened state. So we can be not only help and benefit, but greatest help and benefit. And not only for few sentient beings, but to each and every sentient beings without exception. And while on the path, may we be as much help and benefit as possible to others. And may we never hurt and harm others intentionally, knowingly. Okay, so we'll do that. And do the dedications. No, I mean, yeah. Then I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dhamma, the Sangha. So, yes, I create to the Dhamma. And I become the Buddha, not other than that. Ge che dan so ge cho nam la, dan chu pa tu da ni ta su. Ta hi che che ge ve so nam ge. Do la pen che sang ge do ba. Ge che dan so ge cho nam la, dan chu pa tu da ni ta su. Ta hi che che ge ve so nam ge. Do la pen che sang ge do ba. Anje do chen ye lo ne, tawa tam che pang pe che, tam pe chun ne pen re be, ko dam de la cha ca lo. So, so we have been going through this particular very well-known popular text by one great Indian master, Atisha Dipamkara. And in that section's text, he explained about the whole path to enlightenment through the Sutra and Tantra path. And at the very beginning, he explained the Sutra as the foundations. In terms of the practice of small scope, middle scope, and great scope, gradually progressing from, starting from the very beginning as a beginner, and then as we make practice, as we make progress, then, gradually going in that path. And so that is why sometimes we known as gradual path, lamrim, And then, after that, then he explains, we just came to the section where he explained about the Tantra. But as I mentioned last week, in Atisha, his own writing, Lama Tsongkhapa and all others great teachers, they all mentions in order for the tantric practice to be powerful and effective, you need to have a good foundations of the common path that is taught in the sutras, mainly, renunciations, bodhicitta, and wisdom realizing emptiness. So today I'm going to talk a little bit, Tantra, mantra, whatever different translations. the meaning of that, little meanings, tantra, especially the mantra. Mantra means, protecting your mind. Mantra, man is the mind, and here tra is protecting your mind. And protecting your mind from what? Protecting your mind from ordinary appearance and grasping. When you train in the tantra or mantra through certain practice, certain visualizations, then you protect your mind from seeing everything as ordinary. Instead, you train mind to see things, everything's as like a divine, and then grasping ordinary, so it is to protect, it is a method to protect our mind from seeing ordinary and grasping. So that is what. And also sometimes it's called secret mantra. And why it is called secret mantra is such practice is not something that is given to anyone. The teacher has to analyze the students, whether they are ready or not, whether they have ripened or not, whether they have all the requirement, the foundation or not. It says in the old times, a lot of time those practices were given only for very small numbers, 3 people, 1 individuals, because they analyze, where their how much they have practiced, where their level is, whether they are ripened, whether they are ready for it or not. So that is something that is not given to the public, like that. And so it's again, and also practitioner, also in the really someone is when you someone does practice, they also try to do more secretly, not show up. In some of the big monasteries, like Sarah Devangand, and you are not even allowed to show in the, now it has changed a little bit, but in the past, your tantras implement, you are not even allowed to play it. You are not even allowed to play it, because when you are playing those, it is sign of your practicing that, and it is something you and there's a lot of time that they only realize that practice now only after they die, and they see of and such is so is something given to someone who is ripened, and also as a practitioner is something to practice secretly, not to show up, that. So it is kind of secret month, and sometimes also it is called the great Vajra vehicle or result vehicles, and and so in the tantra, you take your resolve into the path at the moment, so that is also, and mainly, the unifications of the method, the compassion and the wisdom relies in the emptiness. So that is a little bit more on the term of that. From all the tantric teachings, it is explained or explained that without entering the tantric path, you cannot achieve fully enlightenment. You can achieve up to the 10 bhumi, the bodhisattvas, of course, if we can make there. I mean, even first bhumi, even first path, that is great. But at least, just by following just the sutra path, and not if you don't follow the tantric path, you can reach up to the 10 bhumi. But to achieve enlightenment at the end, you do have to enter the tantric path. That is how it is explained in the. And so eventually, to achieve enlightenment, then we will have to enter that path. And one of the reasons, of course, there are many reasons. That one of the reasons given that is when you achieve fully enlightenment, you achieve the union of Dharmakaya and Dharmakaya and Rupakaya together. By following the sutra path through, realizing the emptiness, supported bodhicitta mind, your mind can achieve the Dharmakaya wisdom. But the Rupakaya, the form body, there is no particular substantial cause that can transform into that enlightened body. Because a practitioner, who has this samsaric body, this body is impure. And that impure body cannot transform into something pure body. And there is no other method that is taught in the sutra how to transform that. Of course, in the sutra they talk about the merit, the method, the merit being as a cause to Rupakaya or form body, and the wisdom being the cause of the Dhammakaya. And as an individual practitioner, as they progress on the path, like Arhat, and higher level bodhisattvas who have overcome the delusions, still when they take the body, even though it is not same like samsaric body like ourselves, but still it is the cause of that is said, the cause of such birth and body is said to be uncontaminated karma, and we call there is a potentials, some kind of potentials left by the ignorance. And so something that is result of the potential led by the such ignorance, then cannot transform into a pure enlightened body. So that is the way the problem comes. So in Tantra, they explain about, which is not explained and taught in the sutra. There is a, explanations of using, more subtle mind, their technique, practice, meditation to utilize that most subtle technique, to utilize the most subtle mind, the clear light mind, And with that clearer mind, there is a more subtle wind energy that the more subtle mind ride on, and which the mind and that's more subtle wind energy, or that more subtle wind energy, they both are one entity, and that is where when the mind transforms, that more subtle mind eventually through the practice transform into Dhammakaya, wisdom, and the most subtle wind energy that the mind ride on with the path, with the practice, is transformed into, illusory body, to pure illusory body of the Buddha. And so without that, to be able to transform that mind, more subtle mind and wind energy in that, and um, is not possible. So that is one of the reasons given. So therefore, it is explained. Just like when we try to differentiate between the Arhat and Bodhisattvas, the differentiation is not through the wisdom, because they both have the wisdom realizing emptiness. The differentiation is through the path of bodhicitta. The Bodhisattvas has the bodhicitta mind. The method, Arhat, does not have that. In terms of the wisdom, they both have wisdom realizing emptiness. In the same way, when we differentiate Tantra and Sutra, we cannot differentiate from the point of view of the wisdom. In terms of the wisdom, they both teach the same wisdom, emptiness, and realizing. But it is the method, the method side, that is the cause and the practice to achieve that Rupakaya. So that is one, So that is one of the reasons why in Tantric they explain why we need to eventually enter that path in order to achieve enlightenment, fully enlightenment. In Lama Tsongkhapa, in his great stages to the path of Tantra, he wrote the stages of path to both Sutra, lamrim, there's great, middle, small lamrims. And also in Tantra, he also wrote the stages of the path to Tantra. And in that, he explains and describes, that one of the difference is in Sutra, there is no practice. First, let's say, he explained, the for purity, for purity, that is the pure about or place, pure body, pure enjoyment, and pure activities. When you become fully enlightened, you have all this pure body, pure places, pure enjoyment, pure activities. In Tantra, you can take those, even you have those purity, for purity as a path. Where in Sutra, there is no explanation or the practice. So for example, in Tantra, of course, when you become enlightenment, not only your mind is enlightened, your body is pure, enlightened in that sense. every place your what we call mandala is pure. Everything you enjoy is a pure. Every activity is enlightened, pure activities. So in Tantra, you haven't reached the result, but you take those results as a path now. So in sense, you visualize the environment instead of ordinary, impure environment in your practice, in your mandala. When you visualize whole environment as a mandala, pure mandala. Because there is a potential to achieve that. And so from now, you take in the path by visualizing that. You visualize your impure body as a body of deity or enlightened beings. Of course, this impure body has the potential to become a pure and enlightened. So then, as a practice, when you visualize yourself with the Buddha or as the deity, and then everything we enjoy, at the moment is impure, but in your practice, you visualize, enlightened wisdom transforming into the nectar and in a different aspect of different whatever you enjoy, drinking, food, whatever. And that is, again, taking that enjoyment into that path. And then in the practice, you visualize, sending the light, cleansing, purifying the place, cleansing, purifying the all sentient beings, leading them to enlightenment. So when you achieve enlightenment, you will be able to do that. At the moment, you are just doing visualization, taking that into the path, the activities of the enlightened activities. So those, because in Tantra, those are those methods and practice. In Sutta, there's no mentioning of any of those such technique practice. And so therefore, that is because there is, in Tantra, one can take those four purity result as a path now, even when you have not achieved it. Therefore, that is the unique, one of the uniqueness of the Tantra. That is not there in the sutra. Okay, and so, and that practice does help a lot. Of course, all the technique of reducing and overcoming negative emotions or defilements, that is taught in Sutra, same in Tantra. That is common kind of technique practice that they both share. In terms of actualizing wisdom, realizing emptiness, loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta, patience, the practice of moral discipline, generosity, patience, concentration, they all are kind of common practice, both between the Sutra and Tantra. But there are many practices that you find, technique that you find in Tantra that you don't find in Sutra. In Sutra, there is a visualization, Buddha in front of you or above you, but there is no visualizing yourself as the dead. Okay. So so all these different visualizations help us to have less negative thoughts, negative feelings. It's a method. It's a different method, different technique. Of course, there is different analytical meditations, mindfulness meditation, and so forth that you find both in Sutra and Tantra, common practice, but also uncommon practice that you find in Tantra and not in Sutra is like those just mentioned, and those practice, those different visualizations are a different technique or method to stop having more negative thoughts. For example, when you visualize yourself as the Buddha, because we do have a Buddha nature. Each of us has Buddha nature. Each of us has the potential to become fully awakened, fully enlightened Buddha. Therefore, we have that Tathagata Garbha or Buddha nature. And so in a practice, you already visualize your resultant being, which you have not achieved at the moment, but you can achieve that there is potential. So you already visualize you being there, already achieve that enlightened beings yourself. And by visualizing that yourself as that enlightened beings, that Buddha, if you can really have that strong divine pride, what we call divine pride, because it's not ordinary pride, but it's divine pride, means visualizing and holding to be that as that enlightened beings, as that Buddha, strongly. When you are able to hold that very strongly, there is no space to you to feel self-loathing, self-hatred, self-pity. Do you get it? We started to have this kind of low self-esteem, self-hatred, self-pity when we started to say, I'm so horrible. I'm incapable. I'm such a bad person. I'm such a rascal. When you started to feel negative about yourself, when you hold your image, negative image of yourself, that is when all these negative feelings come in. So when you through this practice, you try to hold on positive image of yourself instead of the negative image of yourself, the resultant image of yourself. Right? And so when you are able to really hold that strongly, there's no space for that. So it is a different method, technique of stopping all those negative feelings about ourselves from arising. And that will same when you are able to hold that kind of through visualizations and through strong, convictions, whole environment as as a mandala, celestial place abroad, Then again, all the negative feeling will come because we see everything imperfect, Do you just see it? Everything you look at, everything is imperfect. That disturbs our minds, upset our minds. Because we want to see everything perfect, then you see here, this is imperfect. You see here, it is imperfect. You see there, you see here, everywhere, you see it seems imperfect. And that can give rise to many negative feelings, thoughts. And when you see as a mandala, all as being pure, perfect, again, as long as you have that kind of strong, as long as you are able to keep that conviction, that visualizations, then again, there is no space to arise all those different negative feelings, negative thoughts in relation to the environment. Same with other beings. You visualize the mandala and you visualize everyone, all sentient beings in that mandala as an enlightened being, as a Buddha. The enlightened being within the same mandala. Because again, everyone has that potential. everyone has the Buddha nature, the potential to become enlightened. And we try to see them in their full potential. Even though they are not enlightened, but their potential become, so at the moment, through this practice, you see them all as being enlightened. And when you are able to see that, and then when you are able to hold that, again, different negative thoughts, feeling will arise because that person is this and that, because we see all their faults, because we all see their defects, because we see their imperfections. Or sometimes we don't, not necessarily because problem, but because of our perceptions. But whatever, due to that, again, we generate a lot of negative feelings, thoughts, emotions. And when you are able to see that, then again, you are able to stop many of those negative thoughts, feeling from arising. So this is another. So therefore, it is said, in Tantra, there's more method. There's more method to deal with our different negative emotions. On top of all the method that you find in Sutra, there are more other methods that that one can apply. Another things that it is in Tantra is, there is a method to transform the, the energy of the desire, the energy of the anger, the energy of ignorance into the path. Of course, it's not something easy. Anyone can transform that, without all the foundations and strong practice. But if you have, again, the strong practice of, three principal aspects of the path, on top of that, then you apply those other more technique that is taught in Tantra, and with that, by using that, then one is able to transform, all those energy of desire, anger, ignorance into something positive, something into the path, And especially, we have so much desire all the time. So much desire. If there is a method to transform those desire into a bliss, not delusional or negative, but positive and healthy, blissful path, definitely is meaningful. And also in some, even though sometimes I myself cannot, maybe I haven't fully understood or fully grasped it fully, but also there is a explanation, in Tantra you can achieve, there is a method to achieve both shamatha and vipassana or special insight simultaneously. Whereas in sutras, first you achieve the meditative concentrations, then you use that shamatha to develop the special insight. But in Tantra, so, but how I with a reason and logic, I haven't been able to really myself. But there is in many of the commentaries, they do explain that, and also, it is explained like in Sutra, both in Sutra and Tantra talk about engage in a practice of union of the method and the wisdom. Okay, the method and the wisdom complementing each other's and going together, supporting each other, and in union to achieve the enlightenment. But in Sutta, method and wisdom are two different minds. Wisdom and method is loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta, so two different minds. In Tantra, both the method and wisdom can be one mind. With one mind, both method and wisdom. And because of that, therefore, it becomes more powerful to accumulate merit and purify, because you have both that energies, or both force or power of wisdom and method within one mind. One mind that is okay, so and as I mentioned before, in Sutra, there is no Sutra teachings, there is no explanations of more subtle mind and how to utilize that more subtle mind. The method or technique to utilize that subtle mind. Whereas in Tantra, they explain about gross mind, subtle mind, more subtle mind. And they say the gross mind, when we die, it ceases. It ceases. And then subtle mind ceases. Then only what is there is more subtle mind. And if you can utilize more subtle mind, it's extremely powerful. Because when all this gross mind has ceased, all these concepts, thought, perceptions, feelings have ceased, there's no distractions. At the moment, when we try to meditate, there's so much distractions because of the perceptions, different thoughts, different feelings, all this gross mind, all these are gross mind. When all this mind sits naturally, when you have that most subtle mind free from all these conception, thought, feeling, perceptions, then it becomes extremely, it's like a, atom bomb, extremely powerful to have realizations when you use for meditations. And that is why a lot of practitioners, meditators, try to train themselves to use that mind when they die, and to use that mind in meditations. In Tibetan, we call Thubten. When someone died, and they could remain for weeks, months in that meditations. And is, medically, someone is, the doctor announced they are dead. There's no functioning of the brain, heart beatings, all of that have ceased. Even you try to see, the lower part of the body, upper part of the body, they are very cold, like some dead body. But still, a meditator can use that small subtle mind and in meditation for. And then even in a recent time, we are not talking about what in Tibet or long time ago, even in recent time, there have been many teachers, lamas, practitioners who have been in that state for 2 weeks, 10 days, 3 weeks. There was one of the Ganden Tipa. He was the 100 Ganden Tipa. I think now is the present one is 104. So 100 Gen Losang Yima. He passed away in India, South India, where there is very humid and hot. And because in that meditations, his body didn't decay, doesn't smell, doesn't decay. More than 21 days without any chemical or any other things. And a lot of people who went to see, they say, the color of the body and face look even more bright and or more alive than before. And from the Dharma explanation, from the tantric explanation, because most subtle mind is still there. The gross mind has ceased. So when the gross mind is more strong, has a strong connection with physical, our brain and all others. But more subtle mind is much more independent and hasn't have that. And so therefore, and what makes that someone can be in that state is because of that. Otherwise, there's no explanations. And when he was in that meditative state, a lot of scientists, doctors came to see what was happening, and they did different whatever they needed, and many of them said they cannot explain why, but they cannot explain at this point, but it is very uncommon, abnormal, someone. But that is like in practitioner is quite normal. You see not just one person, many practitioners over the times. I think maybe if you are interested, I think if you Google, they do, because I think most of them, of course, has not documented. But there was one Rinpoche Lama who passed away in New Zealand. He's also from Sarah. I think his name was Lobsang Thubten, if I'm not 100% sure. But you will see, because and in that, a journalist, a news reporter had documented that. And also he stayed like maybe 20 days, and he go back and forth, seeing the bodies and then interviewing doctors, others, especially interviewing someone who take care of the dead bodies, what are the possibility and how that is possible. So it's interesting. It's interesting. In that one, there is definitely, I know that there's one not document, but someone, a news reporter, journalist who have done some on that, interview with different peoples and visiting the dead body a couple of times at the very beginning and later and seeing all of that. And so anyway, so there is a concept that of the most subtle bodies, subtle mind. That is, so we all go through that when we die, But a lot of time, we cannot use it. We just go through the motions. A lot of time, we are not even aware of that. Just like a lot of time when you are distracted, so many thoughts are coming, you are not even aware of those different thoughts. Do you get it? We just go through. Sometimes there is a lot of sensations happening and it just go through, we just pass through, we are not even aware of what the sensation was happening. Similarly, also when we die, there are all these different process, and we are not aware of that, but some practitioners try to meditate and prepare for that, so then they can, when it comes at that time, they are not hearing from the beginning or what? What? Can you hear? And so, same way, we are not aware, but we go through all of that. So practitioners try to train themselves accustomed to that, and then through the what you call in Tantra, there is a practice called 8 dissolutions. When we die, then there is process of dissolutions as our earth element dissolve, water element dissolve, slowly in a natural process that, fire element dissolve, wind element dissolve, and then, the gross consciousness dissolve. Then slowly the 3 subtle mind dissolve, and then more subtle mind. Of course, at the moment we are just visualizing, going through this process and this and this, and then coming to the clear light mind, and then trying to meditate on that. And so it is like rehearse. What do you call rehearsing? So it is like rehearsing. So because if you do that again and again, at that time your mind is clear, you might be able to recognize, oh, this is what is happening, or now next this will happen, or this is what happened, next this will happen. And then when you come to that clearer mind, then you are aware that is the clearer mind, and you might be able to utilize it. Okay, so that is, and also while we're alive, of course, there are certain practice, opening of your channels, chakras, channels, and through that, again, to be able to have access to that clearer mind. But of course, those are as much as we want to do immediately and want to have access. It is not that easy to, So I was talking about another of that. Also, it is said, with that clearer mind, because the gross mind, all the perceptions and all which are part of the gross mind and all the thought concept, when all this dissolve, what is there is just empty. And therefore, just the environment is such that it's so easy to realize emptiness directly. If we can utilize that clearer mind, by the situation, environment itself is such. So anyway, so that is why they try to. But it is interesting, because this is something about this most clearer mind. Of course, what in Tantra, what they describe as a most clearer mind, is something I think that is Dalai Lama wants the scientists to do more research on that, and there have been many experiments already done to many practitioners. Of course, they haven't come to any conclusions. They haven't come to any conclusions. But from the tantric point of view, that is what is happening. That is what is happening. The most subtle mind, and so that kind of descriptions or explanations, and also how to utilize that mind and cultivate that mind in practice. Those are all again only taught in the Tantra, and it is not taught in the sutras. And so again, also in terms of dissolutions, when you are dying, naturally, normally, as those different elements dissolve, earth element, water element, fire element, wind element, and then the gross mind, subtle mind, when it dissolves, there are different external signs and internal signs. And then, what kind of external sign will there be when you are in that stages, first stages, second stages, third stages? What are the internal signs, that different visions or that you see, And through that understanding, again, if we learn those and if we meditate, then again, when we die and when we have those different visions and different signs, you don't panic. What is happening, because you are seeing something that you have not seen before, because you are aware, oh, I'm in the first stage of that. And you know what to expect next one, what is next going to happen. And when you are in the next stages, you are aware where you are. And so in that way, it also helps you to find more calm, peace in yourself, because you are familiar with that. You are not totally lost in that, with all these different external and internal signs happening. And, so on one hand, it helps you to not panic, not get lost, but being aware of each. And secondly, if we can be aware step by step, then also we will be able to be aware of the clear light mind, and also to be able to use that clear light mind in our practice meditations as well. And that is again only taught in Tantra. So just like as mentioned, because last week when we went to the verse, Atisha didn't explain each of them, but he says, action and contact and so forth. So in Tantra, there are 4 classes. Just like in Sutra, there are 4 tenets, Buddhist tenets. Similarly, in the Tantra, there are 4 classes. And as I mentioned, last week, action Tantra, performing Tantra, yoga Tantra, yoga and Ma yoga, highest yoga Tantra, Ma or high yoga Tantra. So the 4. And again, Buddha taught those 4 classes of school according to the 4 different mental state of disciples. And again, just like the tenets, here also you realize, even though highest yoga Tantra is the most kind of supreme, why didn't he taught that to all? Why didn't he taught that to all? Similarly, in tenets, if Nagarjuna's Prasangika is the highest view of emptiness. Why didn't he taught that to all? If that is the most subtle, if that is most supreme, why didn't he taught that to all? Why did he taught some others more kind of, let's say, more growth level of selflessness, emptiness? Because of skillful means. Not every, even is supreme doesn't mean it's the best for that person. We all are different level, you know. Same with medicines. There might be certain medicines which is most expensive, best treatments, but that might not be the best for certain patients. For certain patients, the basic and most simple and most uh, not expensive treatment, medicine might be the best. So it depends on individual patients. Something that is best for one doesn't mean that is best for others. So therefore, in that moment, in that situations, therefore, same here. And that is what I personally find the beauty and uniqueness of the Buddha's teachings is it feels to me that he's more concerned with what is most beneficial to individuals, not about what is right and wrong, which we tend to do a lot of time. Whether you like it or not, whether it's going to hurt you or whether it's going to harm you or whether it's going to benefit you, this is right, I have to say it, I have to do it. That is how we feel. We're so strongly grasping, attached to right and wrong. Buddha was more what is most beneficial for that person in that time, in that situation, in that time. Even it's the truth, even it's most supreme, even it's the truth, by sharing that, is it going to help that person in that situation, in that mind, at that time? Sometimes it's not. And so because of that, by understanding different sentient beings' predispositions, their mental state, their karmic imprint, and so forth, guiding and leading skillfully that way. And when they are ready for the more supreme higher practice, then he will share that. But when he is not, they are not ready, then he will lead them, give them some teaching, which might not be the highest one, but is very beneficial in that point, in that person's. And creating the right conditions for the higher teachings, higher practice in the futures. Yeah, it's just like a good teacher will be someone who is able to guide the students according to their understanding, Someone, a subject that they will teach to the high school, they will not teach to the kindergarten, Even that is true information and whatever that is, you have to. And so that was the Buddha's approach. That is how I see that is why also here in Tantra, there's 4 classes of type. And so there are many different way of, in some of the 4th type of the schools, four classes of the Tantra. They were given to different people's mentalities. The first, the action Tantra was given to the students or disciples who had the mentality of the Brahmins, in terms of politically right, everything has to be correct, right? It's more about sometimes outside and inside, paying more attention to the outside, how I look, clean, good, how I eat, pure, in terms of, and that is why when we practice the action Tantra, whether it's initiation, any ceremony, we don't eat the black foods, no meat, no eggs, no other black foods like garlic, onion, and like that, being very clean in terms of food, in terms of washing, bathing, wearing a clean clothes, so all are part of that because those teaching and practice were given to more Brahman mentality, and Brahman are like that, very, very clean, clear, like that, So in that, the emphasis is even more on external than internal. And then the next school of thought, or the class of the Tantra, is performing Tantra. In that, then, is given to the mentality of the, kind of the royal families, And there, the attention is given both, external, internal, Also part of that, you also have to be, more pay attention to the external, again, eating, being clean, all of that, but also equally important to the internal practice. And then, the yoga Tantra, then that is given to the mentality of those, who are in the class of, like the business people and so forth, And there, in those practice, the attention is more given to the internal practice, less attention to the external. Whether being clean, unclean, what you eat, what you don't eat, is more focused on the internal practice itself. Then highest yoga Tantra is given to the mentality, or more like the in India, the lowest caste, untouchable. And then it's interesting, isn't it? Highest level of the teachings were given to the lowest level of caste system mentalities, and the lowest practice of Tantra was given to the so-called the highest caste. It's quite interesting, Anyway, I think maybe it's also maybe Buddha's, on other hand, skillful means of kind of trying to change that, you know. Of course, there are a lot of other things he did to change that, you know, to bring equality to all. And therefore, for such low, you know, kind of that, you know, then man is just external is not at all. External is not. I mean, man is just working with your mind, inside practice. You know, how you look, what you eat, how clean you are, how unclean you are. You know, these are not a issue. This is not a focus at all. The focus is all in practice. You know, and actually in those practice, you know, sometimes you do that might seems that might make all the rest of the society, you know, what you call a mess, you know, because there's something the rest of society will not do and put down, you know, very bad, you know, very unclean, you know, disgusting, you know. So those are again in terms of so those and also in terms of transforming the desired energy into the path, you know. Also, in order to transform the subtle. Again, you know, when we talk about subtle and gross, it could have two different meanings. The way we use it, I guess, maybe more than subtle. Maybe better would be, you know, very tiny desire into the path in order to transform in this very small, you know, very light, small desire into the path, then action tantra, and then more stronger desire to transform into then performing tantra, and then more stronger and more intense and stronger desire into the path and yoga tantra, and the more strongest growth or more strongest desire into the path, then you know transform that then highest yoga tantra. So in terms of also transforming the desire into the path, different level of the desire, then different tantras are also, you know, taught with different method in those different tantra in relation to that. So yeah, today I will kind of stop here. So that is a little bit kind of general introduction to the because there is only 2 verses that Atisha described, 2 or 3 verses, and it doesn't go in detail. So I just wanted to just give a little bit of that. Okay. So any question? I can take a couple of questions.
Could you please introduce yourself?
Karen Peterson, can you hear me on Zoom? Yes, okay. Can you comment more on why imperfections are something negative? Because, I mean, Japanese culture is built a whole artistic thing around the beauty of imperfections, both with calligraphy, the bowls that get broken and put together with gold. I mean, there's many, many embraces of that concept. So I don't, and also, you know, with people, you're supposed to tolerate the good and the bad. So I don't quite understand why imperfections are something that's so negative.
I wouldn't say it's a negative. Of course, if you look from ultimate point of view, there's no perfection, there's no imperfection, they are equal. You know, there's no good, bad, they are equal. They are in the same place on convention, on ultimate level. On conventional level, there is good and bad, there's virtues, non-virtues, there's imperfection and perfections. And imperfection doesn't, more than saying is a bad, but it is everyone want to be perfect. Who doesn't want to be perfect? You know, everyone want to be perfect. Of course, grasping to that is one thing, and you know, so nobody want to make a mistake. Basically, nobody want to make a mistake. You know, if you are in a good mind, good state of mind, we want to be perfect. We don't want to make a mistake, and so whether we or ourselves or others, when we see someone making a mistake, when someone making a being imperfect and making a mistake, then it disturbs. Unless someone is a good practitioner, unless someone has a strong tools to deal with that. If you don't have tools to deal with, when you see yourself making mistakes, you can be harsh on yourself. You can be negative feel negative about yourself. When you see someone making a mistake, you can feel negative about that person. You can feel, you know, have a bad feelings, whatever that, you know. And so therefore, if there is a way that we don't have to make a mistake, if there is a way we can be a perfect, why not aspire for that? Why not work for that? You know, of course, while we're trying to reach there, we still will be imperfect. We still make mistake, and we have to be compassionate to oneself and others.
Isn't that, hello? Isn't that how, there's a short, hello? Isn't that how one learns though, from mistakes?
Yeah, we
So-
learn from that, yeah.
But isn't perfection in a way by its very nature kind of boring? Well, boring is probably not the right word, but there's no challenge to strive if there's perfection.
Okay. That is fine. That is fine. A lot of people find enlightenment might be boring, and that is fine. A lot of people think if we have equanimity, it will be boring. If a lot of people feel if we don't have attachment, life will be very. And so, of course, different people can feel a different way. Of course, imperfect. We can learn from imperfect, but definitely we learn from imperfections. But you know, if we can be perfect, that is best. But someone who is not perfect, we can learn from making mistake to not make a mistake. But if there is a way to not to make mistake at all, of course, that is where we want to be. Any other?
Yes, Geshe-la, Lorna. Hi, Lorna. Lorna Hillman on Zoom has a question. The question is, can arhats attain bodhicitta?
Yes, you know, eventually, every sentient beings will achieve bodhicitta and achieve enlightenment. So definitely, arhat. According to some of the bodhisattva path or the teachings, they say, it is better to follow the Bodhisattva path from the very beginning, if possible, instead of achieving arhat and then entering the Bodhisattva path, because there is one disadvantage in that is when you achieve arhat, there's no suffering, there's no delusion, so you can be kind of bliss out in that for long times, and then, and so it takes more longer time to achieve enlightenment. Eventually they will definitely, so anyway, but definitely if arhat, if they decide or if they make the effort to cultivate the bodhicitta, they can achieve bodhicitta. And once they make effort in that, they can make quite easily. Yes.
My name is Gilbert Gagnon. I go by Gil. I have a question. There are a lot of resources available to us, YouTube, books, monasteries. If someone, it's probably too late for me, but if someone wanted to practice Tantra, what would you suggest?
Mm-hmm. You are never too late. I know. Even you have one more day, still you can practice. My general advice has always been, go slowly. Don't rush in everything. That is my suggestion. I've always said that. First try to walk with the common path, the lamrim path. Focus more on that, and then and when we make some progress, or at least have some experience in that, even if we don't have a realization, but at least we have some experience, then maybe but at the same time, many of the teachers and my friends thinks you should take immediately, as quick as possible, because we never know how long we have, and we want to get the imprint by taking by having the empowerment and doing little practice. Even if we can't do a lot of practice, at least we have the imprint to meet the tantric teaching in the futures, so that we can continue that. So therefore, there's two different approach, okay? And so it is for individual to decide. My approach is always go slow, steady, not rush anything. But then there are other opinions, which I also think they have point, that we don't know how much time we have. And if we die without having an imprint, the chances of meeting in the future become more or less than if you have the imprint and all these blessings in the futures, within this life or in the future lives, the chances is more. So therefore, even you are not so great at, and even you might not be able to follow it very well, but better to take the chance. Okay, so there is two kind of approach, and so in terms of that, and so is all, and that is also another beauty of Dharma is it's not same for everyone. It's not same for everyone. Different approach for different peoples, and we just have to find out, so that is, and of course, like one of the things I also think, is you can always combine Tantra and Sutra. That is the, again, Lama Tsongkhapa's unique teaching and practice. Doesn't mean that if you Tantra, then you kind of totally forget the lamrim and Sutra path. You can always practice both together, combining together. So therefore, if you combine those together, then I think it's really great, you know. And so, and yeah, one of the reasons why I kind of encourage people to go slowly is, especially in the West, you know, because it's Dharma is totally new to West, you know, is just been, especially Tibetan Buddhism, 40, 50 years, 60 years, not much, you know. And so, and sometimes when they meet that, it feel, it's like you have been waiting for all. Now I have met it. Like, so you want to rush everything, you know, because you feel something, and then after, I don't know, 5, 10 years, then you figure out, oh, this is not for me. And have made all these connections, and then you decided this is not for me. This was something that other than what I expected or whatever. And then sometime, you know, then it creates negative karma, you know, instead of not having, if you don't have that, you know, you don't, so for that purpose, for that reason, because I've seen people so into it, you know, at the very beginning, and then after some time, you know, so instead you just go slowly and really see and step. So that is the one of the you know, reason that why. But again, as I said, you know, it's all, we all have to make our own decisions, and by seeing all the pro and con of different approach, and both approach or other approach has their own goodness. But, you know, even you are not ready to receive the highest yoga tantra or even the other tantra empowerment initiations, still, you know, one can do the practice, you know, recite the mantra, and some simple practice one can still do, you know. It doesn't stop you from doing that. But of course, if you have the empowerment, there's the blessings, there is the full empowerment to practice more depth. But simple practice, one can still do that, you know, and which we do, you know. So yeah, so that would be my suggestion, I guess. Any other questions? Yes, Anil has one. That would be the last questions for today.
Hi, this is Anil. I didn't have a question so much as a comment. Sometimes taking a practice that's too powerful can have damaging consequences. It's just like we don't plug our house into the power lines up there. The power has got to be transformed down to what the house wiring can handle. And I think that's one of the basis for the differentiation in classes and trying to align the teaching to the particular person.
Thank you. Okay, so then we'll do the dedications.
Master Shantideva's prayer. May all beings everywhere, plagued by the sufferings of body and mind, obtain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtue of my merits. May no living creature suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled with the mind weighed down by depression. May the blind see forms and the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored on finding repose. May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drinks. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvests. May all medicines be effective and wholesome prayers bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be freed from their ailments. Whatever diseases there are in the world, may they never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid and those bound be freed. May the powerless find power and may people think of benefiting each other. For as long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain, until then, may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, Geshe.
Yeah, and I just want to make one comment. Now in this modern technology world, there's so much there out there. You can find everything on online, YouTube, books everywhere. And sometimes you never know. So you need some guidance. So it doesn't have to be teacher, but it's sometimes you would like to have some guidance, advice from some of the maybe senior students who have been practicing many years and just, is this something suitable for me, for my understanding or my state where in terms of my Dharma practice where I am, So those are something that you might want to be a little bit more kind of aware of that. Yeah, otherwise you might spend a lot of time, energy, resources, and you might not achieve much because you haven't gone through the foundations and certain things. And sometimes, especially with certain those kind of technique, if you don't have good guidance, experienced guidance, sometimes it can mess up even your chakras channels, especially with those. It has to be, if someone wants to do those kind of meditations, it has to be really guided by very experienced teachers who have done those exercises themselves and really, like someone like me, I would not be able to do that. Because if you try to do that following instruction in the book and YouTube and that, if you miss small cases here, you can mess up your own chakras and channels. That has also happened for students and people. So those. Just wanted to, yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Geshe, the people on Zoom would like to unmute and say happy birthday to you.
My happy birthday already gone.
Birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Geshe.
Thank you for joining. Thank you. Okay, bye.